Hello students, welcome. This is Mr. Panza teaching you about measurement. Specifically, we're talking about customary United States measurement of weight. So as we have been discussing, the United States measures everything a little bit differently. Length, weight, and capacity. Today, when we talk about weight, in the US, we are using ounces and pounds. Let's dive a little deeper. First of all, the U.S. units for weight are ounces and pounds. The units we use in the United States to measure weight are the ounce. Now, an ounce is typically comparable to, say, one loaf of bread. Let me just show you the page notes here. A slice of bread is just 1 ounce, not the entire loaf. The loaf is a lot heavier. So we're just talking about one slice of bread equaling 1 ounce. As we continue on, we can also talk about a pound. A pound is like taking all of the slices of bread that are in one loaf. And 1 pound is equal to 16 ounces. So if you had 16 slices of bread, you're talking about 1 pound. That's because a loaf of bread is about a pound. It is important to measure using the correct unit. An ounce is a smaller unit of measurement than a pound. And in order to determine what is the best unit of measurement to use, you need to understand that an ounce is small and a pound is bigger, especially when trying to determine, well, which is smaller and which is bigger and which would be the best unit of measure to study with. A ton is the largest one, the most heavy one in the United States customary system. We use this to weigh heaviest objects. When we're talking about that, we're talking over thousands of pounds. 1 ton equals 2,000 pounds. A loaf of bread is equal to a pound. And again, it's important to understand that when we are measuring things, when I'm talking no longer ounces or pounds, but more so tons, we're looking at the heaviest type of object, like trucks and cars or refrigerators. These would all be measured in the U.S. customary system for weight by these 3 units of study. So let's quickly review. 1 ounce is the smallest unit of weight measurement in the U.S. customary system. It's equal to about 1 slice of bread. A pound is about 16 of those slices or a loaf of bread. And 1 ton is 2,000 pounds, which would be about roughly the size of a compact car. So, smallest ounce, middle or medium is pound, and largest is a ton. Let's see if we can apply some of this to a few questions. Which unit would most likely be used to weigh the following objects? We just need to take either ounces or pounds and drag them to the correct unit. So if we're talking about a pencil, that's obviously, when I first start thinking about it, one of the smallest objects. So I've got to be talking about ounces. And I'm correct. The same can be said for things like a quarter. However, when we get a little bit heavier, like a computer or a phone, I would be inclined to think that pounds would be the correct answer. And a pear, as well as a chair, would be in ounces. Because they're my smallest and lightest units, I use ounces. And for the middle types of objects, I'll be using pounds. Here's a couple more questions. Quick quiz. Which object would be weighed in ounces? Again, when I think about ounces, I should be thinking about 1 slice of bread. Would it be a comb, an oven, a chair, or a car? The answer in this case would be comb, because if the ounce is the smallest unit of measurement, the smallest of these 4 choices would be comb. Next question. Which object should be weighed in pounds? An orange, pencil, girl, or paintbrush? The answer is C. The girl will be measured in pounds. And we're typically used to hearing this because when we get our weight at, say, the doctor's office, they're going to weigh us in pounds first. So a girl will be measured and weighed in pounds. Which is more, a pound or an ounce? If you can think back to the pictures, you should know this one. An ounce is the smallest one. That is like a slice of bread. And a pound is 16 ounces, which is like 16 slices of bread. So, the heavier of these two would be the pound. how many ounces are in 1 pound? Well, I had previously mentioned it, and I just mentioned it on the last slide. In 1 pound, it's like having 16 slices of bread, or 16 ounces. So my choice is B. What would you most likely use to measure the weight of a pine cone, an ounce or a pound? Well, when I think about it, the pine cone is really light. So in this case, I would be using A, ounces, because ounces are lighter than pounds. How about what you would most likely be using to measure the weight of a bicycle, ounces or pounds? My choice here would be pounds, because typically bikes are heavier than the things that you would measure, which would be the smaller units for ounces. Which is the best estimate for the weight of a bag of flour? 2 ounces, 5 pounds, 23 pounds, or 400 ounces? Now, these questions can be a little bit tricky, but I like to use process of elimination. Let's take a look at some of the smaller units. First of all, 2 ounces. We know that 2 ounces cannot be the answer, and that's because 2 ounces is just too small. That's like 2 slices of bread. How about 400 ounces? 400 slices of bread? Well, that's a possibility. 5 pounds? Maybe 5 loaves of bread? Or 23 pounds? 23 pounds is a bit too heavy. So now we're left with either 5 pounds or 400 ounces. You got to take your best choice based on what you see here. Which one do you think it is? Typically, when you're left with just 2 choices, you're going to go with the one that has the smaller total number, which in this case would be 5 total pounds. Choice B. 400 ounces, to take out 400 loaves or 400 slices of bread would be a little bit crazy. How about this last question? Which is the best estimate for the weight of a pear? 6 ounces, 8 pounds, 10 pounds, or 35 ounces? Well, 6 ounces again is like saying 6 slices of bread, 8 pounds, 10 pounds, or 35 ounces. I'd measure the weight of a pear in ounces, and in this case, it would probably be closest to 6 slices of bread. So if you ever have a question, I'd go back to our little cheat sheet here. This is the best thing I can tell you when it comes to the U.S. customary and weight. 1 ounce is about a slice of bread. 16 of those ounces is equal to a pound, which is a loaf of bread. And 2,000 pounds is 1 ton. Thanks, and I hope this video helps.